When my son Devin chose to move into the sprawling home owned by his wealthy mother-in-law, Vivian Sterling, his wife Candace, who insisted everyone call her Candy, happily chased that dream right alongside him, leaving me standing alone in the house she'd never bothered to hide her disdain for. I remember, crystal clear, the last thing she yelled as she climbed into the sleek imported sedan Vivian sent to fetch them. "Rot in that dusty old house, you washed-up old-timer." She screamed it so loud, the neighbors stepped out onto their porches to gawk. Devin didn't say a word. He loaded their bags and drove off without once looking back. I stood frozen on my front stoop, watching them speed off toward the world of manicured lawns and hired help they'd always fantasized about. 3 whole months went by. No calls, no text, as if I had simply stopped existing. Then, one Thursday afternoon, they showed up. They arrived in a beat-up rideshare, tugging at the same suitcases they'd left with, once packed with grand expectations, now scuffed and tired, faces drained of hope. When I opened the door and saw them there, eyes begging to be let inside, the way I received them shocked even Tony, the driver who'd brought them, because what they didn't realize was that those 3 months without them hadn't shattered me. They'd remade me into someone else entirely. But to explain how we got to that moment, I have to take you back. I need to tell you what my life was like before it came apart. Before Candace swept in like a storm of ambition and venom. My name is Eleanor, and I'm 64. This modest 2-story place on the working class north side of Detroit is everything I own. I bought it 30 years ago with the payout from my husband's life insurance. He died when Devin was 8, a construction accident. He left for work like any other day and never came home. He left me with a little boy, a pile of bills, and a check that I turned into the only kind of real stability I could afford, a home of our own. I worked 25 years as an administrative assistant at an accounting firm. I never made much, but I made enough. I raised Devin alone. I fed him, clothed him, bought his school supplies, paid for every field trip, every dream he dared to have. The only thing he lacked was a father, and I did my damnedest to be both. I pulled double shifts when I had to. I counted every penny and put away what I could so he could go to college. And he did. He graduated as an engineer and landed a solid job. I was so proud. I thought, finally, my sacrifices had borne fruit. Then Candace arrived. He met her at a company conference 4 years ago. She worked in PR, always immaculate, always carrying that air of superiority that made my stomach clench from the first hello. When Devin introduced us, I smiled, I hugged her, I greeted everyone with warmth. She gave me her hand like she was doing me a favor, eyes skimming over my simple dress, worn shoes, and humble living room like I was a stain to be evaluated. I should have read the signs. They married 6 months later. It was a small ceremony. I couldn't afford anything grand, and Devin didn't want me drowning in debt. Candace sulked almost the entire day. Her mother, Vivian, didn't bother to show up. She sent an extravagant gift and a chilly note about being on business in Europe. I cooked the food myself. My best mac and cheese, collard greens, and fried chicken. Candace barely took a bite. I overheard her tell a cousin, "It tastes like cheap takeout." After the wedding, Devin and Candace moved in with me. Just for a little while, they said, until they saved for their own place. My heart felt full again. I prepared the upstairs room, the largest one, overlooking my small backyard garden. Fresh sheets, clean curtains. I truly thought we were going to be a family. How naive I was. From the first night, Candace began her commentary. The house smelled old. The walls needed paint. The bathroom was too small. The living room furniture looked like it was dragged from a junk pile. Every day brought a new critique. At first, Devin would chuckle nervously and say she was used to something different, that I should try to understand. And I did try. I held back my words and my tears, and I kept cooking, cleaning, doing everything I could to make them comfortable. Months went by and things got worse. Candace refused to eat my food, said it was too greasy, too heavy, too basic. She started ordering takeout from pricey places and left the containers scattered for me to throw away. She invited her friends over and apologized to them for the humble space they had to endure. Devin grew quieter. He came home late and closed himself in the bedroom with her. I'd hear them arguing, her crying that she couldn't stand this life, that her mother was right, that she deserved better. Then Vivian began to visit. Visit isn't the right word. Inspect is closer. She'd glide out of her chauffeured import in evening wear as if she were stepping onto a red carpet. She'd perch on the far edge of my sofa like poverty might rub off. And she talked. Oh, how she talked. She told Devin he had potential, that despite his humble background, he'd built a decent career, and with the right connections, he could go far. Then she'd turn and give me a smile so cold it stung. Eleanor, she'd say, it's admirable you did so much with so little. Not everyone is lucky enough to be born into the right circumstances. I'd clench my fists under the table and force a smile. I did it for Devin because I didn't want to spark trouble. I thought if I stayed patient, if I stayed kind, eventually Candace and her mother would see I wanted nothing but the best for my son. I was foolish. People like that don't interpret kindness as kindness. They see it as weakness, and they pounce like sharks at the sense of blood. Everything shifted one Friday night when Vivian came for dinner. I scrubbed the house until it gleamed. I set fresh flowers on the table. Candace had barely spoken to me that week, but that night she sparkled. During dinner, Vivian held court about her state, her travels, and daring opportunities that would fall into Devin's lap if only he were in the right place. Then she dropped it. Devin, dear, why don't you come live with me? I have an entire wing I never use. 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, a private balcony. Candace would be happy there, and you could focus on your career without, she paused, and locked eyes with me. No attempt to hide the implication. The silence was loud. Devin stared at his plate. Candace's eyes glittered. I felt my heart fracture, but I still smiled. Devin has to decide what's best for him, I said, my voice quiet, while inside I was screaming. And he decided. Of course he did. A week later, they were packing. That week in between felt like being slowly skinned alive. Devin barely spoke. When I tried, he looked away, muttered that he was busy. Candace floated through my house like she no longer belonged to it, gloating. I heard her bragging on the phone about the mansion, the gardens, the heated pool. She didn't mention me. It was like the last 2 years had been erased. I tried one last time to reach him. 2 nights before they moved, I found him in the kitchen getting a glass of water. I approached like you would a startled deer. Son, are you sure? I asked softly. This is your home. It always will be. He set the glass down too hard. Mom, I'm not a kid anymore. I need to build my own life. Candace isn't happy here. And you? He didn't answer. He just walked out, leaving my words hanging in the air. Moving day. A small rental truck pulled up. They didn't have much. Most of the furniture was mine. But Candace made sure to take every gift I'd ever given them, every photo where it was just the 2 of them, as if she meant to scrub their time here from history. I helped load boxes. Devin avoided my eyes. Candace oversaw everything with that victorious smile that cut me. When they were done, Vivian rolled up in her luxury car and didn't bother to get out. She honked twice, like summoning pets. Candace practically ran to her. Devin heaved the last suitcases and finally looked at me. For a heartbeat, I saw it. Guilt, maybe regret. Then Candace called and it vanished. Take care, Mom, he said quickly, turning away. Devin, wait! I called, but he was already walking. Candace lowered the window, her face twisted with the smug triumph I had come to despise. And she hurled words that burn even now. Rot in that musty old house, you washed-up relic. We're going to live the right way, not like rats in this dump. The neighbors poured out. Mrs. Carol Jenkins next door, Mr. Frank Powell across the street. Everyone heard. Everyone watched me be humiliated. Devin climbed into the car without a word, without defending me, without turning back. Vivian hit the gas and they disappeared. I stood at the curb while my neighbors stared with pity. Tears finally came. Mrs. Jenkins wrapped me in her arms. Oh, Eleanor, that woman is unforgivable. And your son, he should be ashamed. I didn't want comfort. I didn't want pity. I went inside and closed the door. The quiet hurt. For the first time in years, I was truly alone. I sat on the couch. The same old couch Candace sneered at, and I cried for my son who chose marble floors and chandeliers over his own mother. For the years I had worked myself raw for him, only to be tossed aside for the public disgrace. I cried for everything. Days became weeks. At first, I checked my phone constantly, waiting for a call, a text, anything. Nothing came. Devin didn't reach out once. It was like I had died to him. When I stepped outside, the neighbors looked at me differently. Some brought food like I was in mourning, and I suppose I was. Mourning a son lost not to death, but to something worse. Greed and ingratitude. One night while I lay awake, I heard noise outside. I looked out and saw a group of kids spray painting my wall. In the morning, I found the words, "The abandoned woman's house." Someone had told the tale. Now I was the neighborhood spectacle, the pitiful mother whose son left for a better life. I scrubbed it off myself. 3 hours, 2 buckets of soapy water. Mrs. Jenkins came to help. I told her no, I needed to do this alone. With each stroke, something inside me shifted. The sorrow hardened into something solid. That night, for the first time in a month, I didn't cry. I sat in my kitchen with a cup of coffee and really looked. Candace had been right about one thing. The house needed work. The paint was tired. The furniture was old. The yard was neglected. Not because I was worthless, like she implied, but because I had poured every minute and dollar into Devin. I had forgotten to care for myself. I had forgotten to care for my home. I opened a notebook and made a list. Paint the walls, fix the leaky bathroom faucet, replace the curtains, repair the garden. Every single thing she mocked, I would improve, but not for her, for me, because this is my house, my home, and I deserve beauty. The next day, I pulled my savings. Not much left. I'd spent most of it on Devin's wedding and helping them while they lived here. I had about $3,000 tucked away. This wasn't a financial emergency. It was an emergency of dignity. I went to the hardware store and bought paint, cream for the living room, soft green for the kitchen, a gentle yellow for my bedroom. A young employee, Marcus Reed, helped me load it into a cab. "You're going to paint alone, ma'am?" he asked. "Yes," I said. For the first time in weeks, I smiled. "I'm going to paint it myself." I started that same afternoon. I moved furniture, spread old newspapers, and got to work. I'd never painted a house in my life, but I learned quick. The first day was chaos. Paint on my clothes, on the floor, on a curtain. I didn't quit. With every stroke, with each wall that changed color, it felt like I was brushing over my hurt, covering the past with something I chose. Mrs. Jenkins checked in daily. "Eleanor, you're wearing yourself out. You should hire someone." But I didn't want to hire anyone. I needed to feel control in my own life with my own hands. 2 weeks I painted. My back ached. My arms burned. I didn't stop. When I finished the living room and saw those clean, fresh walls, I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Pride. But even with the fresh paint drying and the room smelling new, something kept tugging at me. A single, nagging thought. How was Devin? Was he happy in that big house? Did he ever think of me? The mother in me still refused to die, even after everything. And that made me feel foolish. Then I remembered Jasmine Hayes, my old friend from the accounting office who had put herself through law school at night. We hadn't seen each other much lately, but she'd always been solid. Maybe she could help me understand how to protect what little I had. Not to go after Devin, God knows I couldn't do that, but to make sure my home stayed mine. I called her. She sounded surprised, then genuinely happy to hear my voice. "Eleanor, it's been forever. How are you?" For once, I told the truth. Not so great. Can we meet? We agreed on a coffee shop near her office. It was small and cozy, worlds apart from the kind of places Candace probably frequented. I arrived early, hands jittery, uncertain what I even wanted to ask. When Jasmine walked in, I barely recognized her. The timid secretary I remembered had become a poised attorney in a sharp suit, leather briefcase in hand. I felt small for a second. Then she smiled the same warm smile I knew and hugged me tight. Real kindness, not the kind that expects anything back. Tell me everything, she said. So I did. How Devin met Candace, the slow creep of contempt in my own home, the visits from Vivian dripping with judgment, the day they left, and the words Candace hurled at me while my neighbors watched. How I had spent nights staring at the ceiling, asking what I'd done wrong as a mother. Jasmine's face changed as I spoke, softness giving way to something steely. When I finished, she squeezed my hand. Eleanor, what they did is beyond cruel. I need to ask something important. The deed to your house. Whose name is on it? Mine, I said. I bought it with my husband's insurance money. It's been in my name for 30 years. She nodded. Good. Does Devin have any paperwork that lists him as co-owner? No, nothing like that. I swallowed. Do you think he'd try to take my house? With someone like Vivian in the mix, I don't rule anything out, she said carefully. But more importantly, I want you to understand your rights. You're 64. What Devin did, leaving you without support and cutting contact, could potentially fall under elder neglect or abandonment, depending on the circumstances and your state's laws. You could pursue it if you wanted. I froze. Sue my own son? I could never. I'm not telling you to sue, she said gently. I'm telling you you are not powerless. Start documenting. Save every text, every call, or the lack of them. Keep notes, not because you plan to use them, but because you might need to. Her words echoed for days. I had rights. I wasn't defenseless. Such a simple idea. I had spent my whole life giving until nothing was left, making myself small so others could stand taller. I didn't have to do that anymore. Weeks turned into 2 months. After the paint, I tackled the plumbing, fixed that leaky faucet in the bathroom. I hired Marcus, the polite kid from the hardware store, to help with what I couldn't manage. He was honest, hardworking, and fair. Together, we revived the yard, planted new flowers, mended the fence. I replaced the old curtains with light beige ones that let the sun flood in. I filled the living room with green plants. My house brightened, and so did I. I dropped some weight from all the work. Color returned to my face from hours in the garden. But the real change wasn't on the outside. It was in my eyes when I looked in the mirror. I didn't see a woman crushed by grief anymore. I saw someone sturdy, someone who no longer needed anyone's approval to feel worthy. One afternoon, while I watered petunias, my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost let it go to voicemail. Something told me to answer. Mom, Devin's voice, strange, tight, almost panicked. My heart jumped. After nearly 3 months of silence, he was finally calling. Devin, are you okay? I'm fine, he said quickly. Listen, Mom, I need a favor. It's urgent. A favor. Not, I miss you. Not, I'm sorry. Just a favor. What do you need? My voice came out colder than I meant. Expenses? Don't you live in a mansion with a millionaire mother-in-law? What sort of expenses could be so urgent? Mom, please don't start. Are you helping me or not? The ice in his tone hurt worse than any insult Candace ever threw. This was my son, the boy I raised, talking to me like I was an ATM. Devin, I haven't heard from you in 3 months. Not a single call to ask if I'm alive. And now you want money. Do you actually expect me to say yes? He knew you'd make this about you, he snapped. You always do, playing the victim. If you don't want to help, just say it. Something inside me clicked into place. Not sadness anymore, but clarity. No, Devin, I said. I'm not lending you the money. Silence. Then Candace's voice in the background, sharp and frantic. Devin exhaled hard. Fine. I knew I couldn't count on you. Goodbye. He hung up. I stood in the yard, phone in hand, flooded with a mix of pain and relief. I had said no. For the first time in my life, I had told my son no. And it felt awful. It also felt right. That night, I called Jasmine and told her about the call. She whistled under her breath. 5 grand? Eleanor, something's off. People with real wealth don't beg for $5,000. Not unless they were in real trouble. You think so? I know so. Let me pull some threads around Vivian. I have contacts. Might be good to know what your son's gotten into. I didn't know how I felt about digging. Part of me wanted to forget all of it. Another part, the mother part, needed to know he wasn't in danger. A week later, Jasmine asked me to come by her office. She slid a folder across her desk. She found some interesting things about Vivian. First, that mansion. She doesn't own it. She rents it, and she's behind on payments. Her import business, Jasmine tapped a page. Hemorrhaging money. On paper, she's a shell. It's all smoke and mirrors. I stared, stunned. But the car, the clothes, leased, borrowed, or racked up on credit, Jasmine said. And more. She's been charging Devin and Candace rent, room, board, the works. Your son's not living for free and luxury. He's paying for the privilege. From what I can tell, she's squeezing them for every dollar. A wave of emotions rolled over me. A mean little glow. Candace hadn't stepped into a fairy tale after all. Then worry. Devin was still my child. What am I supposed to do with this? Nothing, Jasmine said. Not yet. Keep it. Something tells me you'll need it. She was right. 2 weeks later, on a gray, wet Thursday, my doorbell rang. When I opened it, there they were, Devin and Candace. Soaked through, suitcases in hand, the same ones they left with, now scratched and battered. Their faces looked hollowed out. Tony, the rideshare driver, stood by his car, watching. "Ma'am," Devin said finally. His voice was cracked. "Can we come in?" I didn't move. Rain drummed on the porch roof. Candace hugged herself in a thin sweater that stood no chance against the cold. She wore the same green dress from moving day, muddy at the hem now. "Talk?" I repeated. "That's interesting. 3 months ago, you weren't interested in talking. 3 months ago, you wanted to walk into your shiny new life and leave me to rot in my dusty old house. Isn't that what you shouted, Candace?" She flinched. Speechless. Maybe for the first time since I'd met her. Devin stepped forward. "Mom, please. We made a mistake. A big one. Vivian, things didn't work out like we thought." "Didn't work out?" My voice was hard as granite. "What exactly didn't work? Was the mansion not glamorous enough? Was the food not fancy enough? Or did Vivian turn out not to be as generous as you had imagined?" Tony finished unloading their bags and approached. "Ma'am, that'll be $120. Devin patted his pockets. "I don't have cash. Can I transfer? In this rain, my ab's acting up. I need cash." An awkward beat. Devin checked again. Candace pulled out a crumpled $50. Together, they scraped $115. $5 short. They both turned toward me, waiting for the old pattern. Me rushing in to fix things, covering the last bit as always. I folded my arms. "I'm sorry, Tony," I said. "I didn't order that ride." Devin blinked. Stunned. Candace teared up. Tony sighed. "Look, I need to get paid. I've got a family too. We'll pay you," Devin said quickly. "Give me 2 days and I'll transfer the rest. Tip included, I promise." Tony didn't look thrilled, but he took the $115. 2 days. If it's not there, I reported. He slid back into the car and drove off, leaving the 3 of us in the rain. "Mom, please," Devin said, lifting a suitcase. "We're soaked. Can we come inside?" I looked over my shoulder into my house, my freshly painted walls, my carefully tended living room, the sanctuary I'd built with my own hands. Then I looked back at them, waiting for me to do what I've always done, give up my self-respect to save them. "No," I said. The rain seemed to pause. Devin stared like he hadn't heard me right. "What?" "No," I repeated. "You can't come in." Candace choked on a sob. "Eleanor, please. We have nowhere to go. Vivian, she threw us out. No money, nothing. We've been in cheap motels for 4 nights, but it's gone. Just for tonight, please." "Just for tonight," I echoed. "Like when you moved in with me temporarily and stayed nearly 2 years? Like when you spent those years apologizing to your friends for my humble house?" "I was wrong," she cried. "I'm sorry. I'm truly sorry." "You know what's sad?" I said. "I believe you. I believe you're sorry. But You're not sorry for how you treated me. You're sorry because now you're in the position you look down on. Devin dropped his suitcase. Mom, I'm your son. Are you really going to leave me out here? Those words, sharp and designed to cut. I felt the old instinct rise. Open the door, let them in, save them. Then I remembered Jasmine. You have rights. You are not helpless. I remembered sleepless nights, the spray paints on my wall, the looks of pity from people who'd watched me be humiliated. Devin, when you left 3 months ago, you left me, I said. You chose marble floors and status over your own mother. You kept quiet while your wife insulted me on the street. You didn't call once. You finally did, and it was to ask for $5,000. When I said no, you hung up. So no. I'm not putting you on the street. You did that yourselves. But Mom, no buts. I said, look around. See the walls? I painted them. The garden? I planted it. This house isn't what you left behind. It's my home, my refuge. You are not welcome here. Candace crumpled, knees hitting the wet pavement. Please, Eleanor, we made a terrible mistake. We need you. You need me now, I said, staring at her. When you had a mansion, you didn't need me. You only come to me when you've run out of other options. Mrs. Jenkins stepped out with an umbrella, watching. Mr. Powell, too. The same neighbors who witnessed my humiliation were here again. Only this time, I stood on the other side of the story. Devin raked his hands through his wet hair. Fine. We were awful. We were ungrateful. What do you want from us? Do you want us to beg? I'll do it. I'll do anything. Just let us in. For one night. No, I said. You're adults. Figure it out the way I did when life crushed me. Candace sobbed. Devin stared at me like he didn't recognize his mother anymore. I felt the words pour out like a flood I'd been holding back. Even now, you're not here because you miss me. You're here because you have no one else. I'm the last stop, and I'm not a last stop anymore. I stepped inside and closed the door. Candace called my name. Devin pounded on the wood. I didn't open it. I leaned against it, heart hammering. Tears came, but they weren't grief. They were release. After a few minutes, I heard voices outside. Mrs. Jenkins offering the church shelter, Mr. Powell offering cash for a motel. The very people Candace looked down on were showing them kindness. That was their choice. I had made mine. I sat in my quiet living room, cradling a cup of tea, feeling the terror and the relief of finally choosing myself. I didn't sleep much that night, but the quiet in my chest was new. I'd chosen myself. For once, and it held. Around 9 the next morning, Mrs. Jenkins knocked, carrying a tray of warm sweet rolls and her familiar worried look. She stopped short in the doorway, eyes sweeping the freshly painted walls and tidy room. Oh, Eleanor, your house looks beautiful. I haven't been inside since you started. It's lovely. Thank you, Carol, I said, setting out coffee. She wrapped her hands around the mug, working up to it. I took them to Pastor Michael's shelter. He gave them 3 nights. They looked broken. Candace cried the entire ride. Devin barely spoke. A weight pressed on my chest. You came to tell me I was too harsh, I said flatly. She shook her head. No, I came to say I'm proud of you. What you did took spine most folks don't have. I saw how they treated you when they left, like you were nothing. They can't come back like nothing happened. You did the right thing. Her words loosened something inside me. I'd braced for judgment. Instead, she offered respect. Are they okay? I still asked, because of course I did. Do they have food? The church feeds them, and Frank gave them $200. More than they deserve if you ask me, but you know Frank's heart. I nodded, feeling relief and something I couldn't name. I didn't want them to suffer. I also wouldn't rescue them. Balancing those truths felt like walking a wire. The next few days were strange. I knew they were only 4 blocks away, but I didn't go. I didn't call. I kept living. Marcus came by to install new light fixtures in the living room. The warm glow made the place feel even more like a home. In the yard, the flowers we'd planted began to take hold. One afternoon, I heard raised voices on the sidewalk. It was Candace, pacing with her phone pressed to her ear. I don't care what you have to do. I need help, she snapped. I'm your cousin. Did you forget when I loaned you money for your business? A pause, then a frustrated fine. before she hung up. She trudged away in the same clothes I'd seen her in days ago, hair unkempt. I watched from behind the fence, torn between grim satisfaction and a pang of pity. That evening, Jasmine called. "How are you holding up?" she asked. "I heard what happened," she added before I could answer. "Neighborhoods are grapevines. I don't feel good about it," I admitted. "You're not supposed to feel good," she said. "You're supposed to feel strong. Different things. Do you regret it?" I thought about it. "No." "Good," she said, "because I have more on Vivian. Can I stop by tomorrow?" She came over with another folder and spread documents on my coffee table. "Vivian is in deep financial trouble," she said. "Lawsuits from 3 creditors. That house she's in, foreclosure procedures start next month. In that import business, it doesn't exist. It looks like a front for money laundering, and law enforcement has taken notice. Eleanor, she's headed for serious legal problems." I stared. "Does Devin know any of this?" "I doubt it. She's very good at the performance. There's more." She tapped another page. "She charged them $2,000 a month for their room. That doesn't include food or utilities. She bled them dry. That's why he called asking for $5,000. $2,000 a month?" I repeated. "They could have rented a nice apartment for that." "Exactly. She sold them a lie that living in that house would buy connections and open doors. There were no doors, just a trap." I sifted through the papers, emotions clashing, relief that I hadn't handed Vivian my savings, anger that my son had been exploited, and a steady grief for the choices that brought him there. What am I supposed to do with all this? Nothing, for now. Just know the truth. They made bad decisions, yes, but they were also outmatched by a practiced manipulator. Friday afternoon, Pastor Michael knocked. He was in his 70s, gentle-eyed but firm. I poured him water, and he got straight to it. "Devin and Candace have to leave the shelter tomorrow. 3 nights is the policy, and we're at capacity." He folded his hands. "Your son asked me to come speak with you." I told him the truth. He abandoned his duty to you and acted shamefully. But I also believe in redemption. I'm not asking you to take them back in. Perhaps you could help them find a place or loan them a little to get started. "Pastor," I said quietly, meeting his eyes. "With respect, no," he sighed. "I understand your pain, child, but vengeance. This isn't revenge," I said steady. "It's protection. I spent 3 months rebuilding myself. If I let them back in even a little, I will fall back into sacrificing myself for people who don't value me. Devin is 32. He has an education. He can work. He can rebuild. Without me." He held my gaze for a long moment, then nodded. "You're right. May God bless you, Eleanor, and give them the strength to face their consequences." After he left, I sat in the garden and cried, not from sorrow, but from a kind of release. Everyone who expected me to bend was learning that I wouldn't. I wasn't cruel. I was finally strong. I knew I'd crossed the threshold. There was no going back. The next morning, I woke with a calm I didn't recognize. Over coffee, the doorbell rang. It was Marcus, hands jammed in his jacket pockets, wearing a shy smile. "Good morning, Mrs. Eleanor. I hope I'm not interrupting. My grandmother's cat had kittens 2 months ago. They're ready for homes, and I thought your place feels warm now. Maybe a pet would fit." The idea startled me. I'd never had a pet. Devin was allergic as a kid, and afterward I just never thought of it. But now, with my renewed home and quiet life, the thought of a small, living heartbeat here sounded perfect. "What do they look like?" "There are 3, he said. 1 pure white, 1 calico, orange and black patches, and 1 gray with green eyes. They're sweet and already litter trained." "I'd like to see the gray one," I said, surprising myself. An hour later, he came back with a cardboard box. He lifted the lid, and the most beautiful little gray kitten climbed out. Silky fur, bright green eyes, curious and fearless. I scooped her up. She tucked under my chin and started purring. My heart softened instantly. "I'll keep her," I whispered. Marcus grinned. "I figured you'd pick her. My grandmother says this one was always waiting for the right person." After he left, I sat on the couch with the kitten sprawled across my lap. "You need a name," I told her. I thought for a moment and smiled. "Luna, you're my new moon." The days felt different after that. Luna followed me from room to room, slept curled against my ribs, and perched on my lap while I read. Mrs. Jenkins came to meet her and fell in love on sight. "This house needed this kind of joy," she said. She was right. The rooms didn't feel haunted anymore. They felt alive. A few days later, at the pet store picking up supplies, I turned a corner and nearly collided with Vivian. She wore oversized sunglasses, but I recognized her immediately. She looked diminished. Designer clothes, still, but wrinkled. Hair without its usual salon sheen. Tired. Older. "Eleanor," she said, lifting her glasses. Surprised. "Vivian," I answered, my voice cool. We stood there in a brittle silence. Her gaze flicked to my cart. Cat food, litter, a little toy mouse, then back to me, assessing as always, but this time whatever measure she'd used on me for months had lost its edge. "I heard about Devin and Candace, that they showed up at your place." "They did," I said. "And you didn't let them in?" she asked. "No," she laughed. A thin, bitter sound. "I don't blame you. They were fools. I thought Devin had more drive, more ambition. Instead, he turned out weak. Like his father, I suppose." Anger flared white hot. "Do not talk about my husband," I said. "He was worth 1,000 of you. He was honest. He worked hard. He didn't build his life on lies." Her eyes narrowed. "What did you say?" "You heard me. I know about you, Vivian. The rented mansion, the debt, the $2,000 a month you squeezed out of them for a room. I know about your business that doesn't exist. And I know the authorities are very interested." She went pale. "You know nothing," she said, the conviction missing from her voice. "I know enough," I said. "You used my son. You bled him dry. And when he couldn't give you more, you tossed him out like trash. Exactly what you encouraged them to do to me." "They made their choices," she snapped. "They did," I agreed. "And so did you." Her lip curled. "Watch your mouth, you nosy old." "Going to sue me?" I asked. "Please do. I'd love to see your books opened up in court." I leaned in. "You took me for weak and simple. You were wrong. I raised my son alone. I bought my home alone. I rebuilt myself alone. While you drown in the mess you created, I'm standing." I paid for my things and walked out with my head high. My hands shook. My heart pounded, but I felt powerful. I had spoken the truth to the woman who had caused so much harm. That night, Jasmine called, her voice buzzing. "Eleanor, you won't believe it. Vivian was arrested this afternoon. The investigation moved quickly. Fraud and tax evasion. She's being charged." I sat down hard on the sofa. Luna bounded onto my lap. "Is Devin wrapped up in it?" "No," Jasmine said. "He didn't know. He was just another mark. But the money they gave her, it's gone." After we hung up, I sat with that. Devin and Candace had lost everything. Money, pride, illusions. And I, the woman they'd cast aside, was steadier than I'd been in years. On Sunday, I did something I hadn't done in ages. I went to the park alone. I watched families picnic and children chase birds. In the past, scenes like that would have carved out my loneliness. Now, I felt light. I didn't need anyone to validate my joy. I had my home, my little cat, and a peace I'd fought to earn. On a bench, I met a woman named Ruth. Silver hair, kind eyes, about my age. We fell into easy conversation. She lived alone too. She had weathered her own storms with her kids. It's freeing, isn't it, when you finally realize you don't have to live for everyone else? "Yes," I said, smiling. "It is." We exchanged numbers and agreed to meet for coffee the next week. A new friend, a new thread in a life that was slowly weaving itself into something whole. The weeks rolled by, and my life kept blooming in ways I hadn't expected. Ruth and I started meeting twice a week. Walks in the park, coffee at a little spot with wobbly tables and great pie. She introduced me to her circle, a lively bunch of women our age who met on Thursdays for dance class. I hesitated, embarrassed at the thought of stumbling around, but they tucked me into it. The first class was a sight. I stepped on my partner's toes 3 times, forgot which foot led, and laughed until my ribs hurt. Nobody mocked me. They laughed with me. By the 3rd class, my feet knew where to go. Something about moving with music, letting my body be light, was freeing. For that hour, I wasn't the abandoned mother or the woman who'd been humiliated. I was just Eleanor, dancing. After class one afternoon, Ruth studied me over her coffee. "You look different," she said, "not just on the outside, though you do look radiant. It's in your eyes. You're coming back to yourself. I feel like I'm being reborn, I admitted. Devin leaving didn't break me. It unshackled me. Sometimes, she said softly, people have to leave so we can find out who we are without them. Meanwhile, news about Devin and Candace drifted over the neighborhood grapevine. After the shelter, they'd found a tiny room in a rundown boarding house across town. Devin was delivering food on a bicycle, work he never would have considered before. Candace was scrubbing floors and polishing desks, cleaning offices for a living. The woman who once turned her nose up at my cooking was hauling garbage bags and mopping night after night. Mr. Powell told me he'd spotted them. They looked worn down, he said gently. Devin saw me and dropped his eyes. Shame all over him. I didn't feel triumph. I didn't feel pity either. Just a quiet, even acceptance. They were living out the consequences of choices they made. One crisp afternoon in October, I was watering the marigolds when I saw a familiar figure walking up the sidewalk. Candace. Alone. Her hair was pulled back in a plain ponytail, no makeup, old jeans, and a threadbare tee. But the biggest change was in her face. The arrogance was gone. In its place was exhaustion and humility. She stopped at the fence and didn't try the gate. "Eleanor," she said, voice small, "can we talk? Does Devin know you're here?" I asked. "No, he says he's too proud to ask again, but I swallowed. I need to say something." 5 minutes, I said, nodding to the patch of sidewalk. She stayed outside the fence, like she could feel the boundary even without me stating it. "I want to apologize," she said. "I know it won't undo anything. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I need to say it. I was cruel to you. I made you feel less. I mocked your home, your food, your efforts. I did it because my mother taught me that money defines people, that appearances matter more than character. I believed her. I married Devin because I saw potential I could shape. And every day in your house made me feel like I was failing. So I lashed out. I used you." Tears slid down her face. "And then my mother used us the same way. She took what she could and threw us out. Cleaning toilets has a way of teaching you about dignity. I see what I did. I hurt you. And what do you expect me to do with that?" I asked, my tone neutral. "Nothing," she said quickly. "I'm not asking you for anything. I just wanted you to know I'm sorry. Truly." I studied her for a long moment. This wasn't the desperate bargaining from the night in the rain. This was different, plain, unvarnished, and real. "I believe you mean it," I said at last. "But you're right about something else. I'm not going to forgive you. Not now, maybe not ever. Forgiveness isn't a prize handed out for saying sorry. It's something earned over time by showing up differently, consistently, and I'm not interested in giving you that time." She nodded. "I understand. Thank you for listening." She took a step back, then paused. "Your home looks beautiful, Eleanor. It always was beautiful. I just refused to see it." I watched her walk away, shoulders bent, but oddly lighter. I didn't feel victorious. I felt a chapter close with a soft click. That evening, Jasmine called with an update. "Vivian's case is moving fast," she said. "The trial's scheduled for next month. My contact says the evidence is strong. She's likely looking at real prison time." "Poor Devin," I said without thinking. The words surprised me as they left my mouth. "You still worry about him," Jasmine observed. "He's my son. A part of me always will. That doesn't mean I'm going to bail him out. Two things can be true at once. You're steadier than you know," she said warmly. November blew in with a chill that felt clean and new. My days settled into a rhythm. Coffee in the morning light, playtime with Luna, tending the garden beds until my fingers smelled like mint and soil. Thursdays, I danced. Sundays, I walked with Ruth. I bought a few prints for the walls, tucked plants into corners where they'd catch the sun. The house felt awake, like it was breathing with me. One morning, Mr. Powell knocked with a favor. "My nephew, Ken, just moved here. He's an accountant, looking for work. Could you give him a few pointers? You've got experience." "Of course," I said. Ken turned out to be in his 50s, divorced, with a gentle sense of humor and a careful, kind way of listening. We talked for hours about the local firms, who was hiring, how to polish a resume. Before he left, he smiled shyly. "Thank you, Miss Eleanor. Not many people make time like this." After he walked out, I stood in my doorway thinking. I was opening myself to new people, good people, without fear. My world was stretching in quiet, honest ways. I wasn't trapped in a loop of trying to please Devin or enduring Candace's scorn anymore. I was building something of my own. December settled over the neighborhood with strings of lights and plastic reindeer on roofs. Usually, that season pulled me back into old memories of Christmases with Devin as a little boy, yearning wrapped in tinsel. This year felt different. Ruth invited me to a holiday dinner with her friends. I said yes. That evening, I stood in front of the mirror and really saw myself. Color in my cheeks, a light in my eyes that hadn't been there in years. Not the kind of happiness that depends on anyone else, just a steady contentment I'd built with my own hands. Luna meowed from the bed like she agreed. "Do I look all right?" I asked her. She purred, and I decided that was a yes. The dinner was lovely. 8 women, each carrying her own history of loss and renewal. We ate, told stories, and toasted to second chances. For the first time in so long, I felt part of something again, a family chosen instead of assigned. When I got home, an envelope was tucked into my doorframe. No return address. I opened it at the kitchen table. "Mom, I know you don't want to talk to me. I understand. I just wanted you to know I got a new job, back in engineering. It doesn't pay much yet, but it's a start. Candace and I rented a small apartment. We're learning to live with less and appreciate what we have. I know I failed you in ways that can't be excused. Someday, if you'll allow it, I want to show you I can be the son you deserve. Devin." I read it twice, then a third time. Something loosened. Not forgiveness, not yet, but maybe the beginning of a path I hadn't expected. I put the letter in a drawer. I didn't respond. Not yet. Time would decide. January came in sharp and cold. One morning, I sat in the garden with my coffee steaming in the air, bundled in a thick sweater. An old, dented car pulled up to the curb. Devin got out from the driver's side. Candace stepped out from the passenger side. They didn't rush the door, didn't shout my name. They walked to the fence and stood, waiting for me to choose whether to meet them. I watched them for a long moment. Luna settled in my lap. The sun lit the frosted grass. I had everything I needed. I could have ignored them and gone inside, but something about their quiet posture, patient, respectful, made me stand. I walked to the fence, but didn't open it. "What do you want?" Devin lifted a cardboard box. "We brought this," he said. "It's every document for the house. Deeds, receipts, it's all in your name, but I want you to know we would never try to claim it." I went to a lawyer. He pulled out a paper. "This is a legal statement waiving any claim I could ever have to your property. It's notarized." I took the paper. It was exactly what he said it was. Formal, binding. "Why?" I asked. He swallowed. "Because you gave everything to raise me. You bought this house with one check and built a life on it. I repaid you by throwing your love back in your face. The least I can do is make sure no one can ever touch what's yours." Candace stepped forward, voice low. "Eleanor, I also wanted to tell you, I got a steady job cleaning offices. It's not glamorous, but it's honest. Every night when I mop floors, I think about how you kept your home spotless while I mocked it. How you cooked with love while I turned away. I'm learning what dignity in work really means, something my mother never taught me." Devin's jaw tightened. "My mother is going to prison," he said. 5 years. The judge was blunt. Part of me feels relieved. She won't hurt anyone else for a while. Candace and I started therapy. We're trying to understand why we made the choices we made, why we were so cruel to you. I looked at them. Their words sounded different now. No spin, no manipulation. Just plain truth. "I'm glad you're working on yourselves," I said, "but it doesn't erase what happened." "We know," Devin said immediately. "We're not here to ask for forgiveness. We don't deserve it. We just wanted you to know we're changing. And if, years from now, you decide to give us a chance, we'll be ready. If you never do, we'll understand." I held the box against my hip. "Is that all?" Candace pulled an envelope from her purse. "This is for you," she said, almost whispering. $500. I know it's small compared to everything you did for us. It's what we could save so far. Every month we'll bring you more. What we owe you for the wedding, for the food, for the help. every penny. "I don't want your money," I said automatically. "Please accept it," Devin said. "Not for us, for you. Because you shouldn't have had to pay for any of it." I stared at the envelope. For them, right now, $500 meant long weeks of saying no to themselves. "Fine," I said at last, taking it. "But hear me clearly. This doesn't fix anything. This doesn't mean I forgave you." "We know," they said together. "We know. You have a long road ahead if you truly want to prove you've changed. Not with words, with actions." For years, Devin nodded, eyes shining. "I'm going to spend the rest of my life trying to be the son you deserved," he said. "Even if you never forgive me, even if you never see me again." They turned and walked back to their car. I stood there until the engine noise faded. I didn't feel triumph. I didn't feel misery. Just a settled quiet, like a door gently closing. They had come with humility and taken responsibility. That didn't wipe the slate clean. Forgiveness doesn't arrive like thunder. It creeps in over time, or it doesn't. Only time would tell. That afternoon, Jasmine stopped by. I showed her the notarized waiver and the stack of documents. She read carefully, her lawyer's eyes scanning every line. She said, "This is solid," handing it back. "Your home is ironclad, and the fact he did this without you demanding it, that matters." "What does it say to you?" I asked. "That he's beginning to understand," she said softly. "Really understand." The months slid by. Like clockwork, an envelope landed in my mailbox every 30 days. Cash inside and a short note from Devin. "Thinking of you, Mom. Hope you're well. Luna must be getting big." He never asked for anything. He never pushed. He just did what he promised. I tucked the money away in a drawer and left it untouched. I wasn't sure what to do with it yet, but I knew what it represented. In March, Ken called to say thank you. He'd gotten a strong job lead through one of the firms I'd mentioned. "Let me take you to dinner," he said. I expected a quick bite and polite conversation. Instead, we spoke for hours about life, work, and the small, ordinary comforts that make days feel worth living. He was clever without being showy, kind without being cloying. When he dropped me off, he smiled. "I'd like to see you again, Eleanor. If you'd like." "I would," I said, surprising myself with how easy it felt. It wasn't romance. Not then, maybe not ever. But it was companionship. It was connection. April arrived and my garden woke up in color. It had been 8 months since that rainy day. One afternoon, I heard voices on the sidewalk and glanced up to see Devin carrying Mrs. Jenkins' groceries to her door. He spoke to her gently, smiling in a way that looked unforced. When he finished and turned, he spotted me watching. He lifted a tentative hand. I gave a small nod. It was nothing, and it was something. Hope flickered across his face before he moved on. That evening, Ken came over for dinner. We'd been seeing each other regularly for 2 months now. Dinners, park walks, endless conversations that never felt heavy. "Your garden is stunning," he said as we ate on the patio. "It's like it exploded into life." "That's how I feel," I said, smiling, "like I've burst back into myself." He reached across and squeezed my hand. "I'm glad I met this version of you, the one who knows her own strength." After he left, I settled into the living room with Luna sprawled like a queen on my lap. The month's envelope had arrived earlier. This time, there was a photo tucked in with the cash. Devin and Candace in a park. Both of them smiling softly, dressed simple and neat. On the back, a note in Devin's handwriting. "We started community cooking classes. Candace learned mac and cheese. Not as good as yours, but she's trying. I'm trying too." I slid the photo into the drawer with the others. It was full now. 8 months of quiet restitution. Maybe it was time to acknowledge the effort. If not with words, then with space. In May, Ruth proposed hosting our dance group gathering at my place. It would be the first time I'd opened my home for a celebration since Devin left. I said yes. The night arrived with laughter and music spilling into my freshly painted rooms. We danced between the furniture, balancing plates and stories. Mrs. Jenkins brought old neighborhood snapshots, and we flipped through them, marveling at our younger faces. Ruth raised her glass. To fresh starts, she said. We echoed her. To fresh starts. After everyone left, I sat in the garden under a wash of starlight. Luna dozed, a warm weight in my lap. The breeze carried the scent of basil and damp earth. I heard the gate creak. Devin stood there, alone, hands at his sides. Sorry it's late, he said. I saw your lights. Do you have a minute? I held his gaze for a long beat, then, for the first time in 8 months, I unlatched the gate. Come in, but just for a moment. He stepped in and sat on the bench, leaving space between us. Luna blinked at him. Is that new? He asked, nodding at her. Her name's Luna. I adopted her a while ago. She's beautiful. Silence rested between us. Not hostile, just careful. He took a breath. I didn't come to ask for anything. I wanted to say I saw you with that man, Ken. You looked happy. That makes me happy too. You deserve good people. You deserve joy.
Where are you going with this, Devin? Nowhere, he said, and for once it felt true. I don't expect forgiveness anymore. I don't expect things to go back. I just hope that someday, when you see me, it doesn't hurt. Even indifference would be more than I deserve. His words caught me off guard. No bargaining, no angle. I don't feel indifferent, I said slowly. I still hurt, but I also see your effort. I can't promise what comes next. I can only acknowledge that you're trying. Tears streaked his face. That's more than I expected. Thank you. He stood to leave. I stopped him. Come to dinner next Sunday, I said. You and Candace. 2:00. I'm not promising anything more than a meal. He stared at me, hope careful in his eyes. Really? Really? Don't be late. Sunday came bright and clear. They arrived at 2 on the dot with flowers from my garden and a framed photo restored from years ago. Me and a small Devin, both of us grinning in this same backyard. The meal was awkward at first. Too bright politeness, silences with hard edges. Slowly it softened. Devin talked about his job, how he was piecing his career back together. Candace spoke about therapy, about learning to value plain, honest things. There were no dramatic apologies, no big gestures, just small, sturdy words. When they left, I stood in the doorway watching them climb into their dented car. Mrs. Jenkins called over the fence. Well, did you forgive them? No, I said, honest as air. But I'm giving them a chance to earn it. That night, after the dishes were washed and the house was quiet again, I sat in my living room with Luna purring in a warm curl across my lap. I let myself breathe. I thought about the woman I had been 8 months earlier, cracked wide open, humiliated on my own front steps, and the woman sitting here now. I had my lovely, light-filled home. I had real friends. I had the easy companionship of a good man who never asked me to be smaller. And maybe, just maybe, I had the beginning of something cautiously new with my son. The past didn't feel like a chain anymore. Candace's taunts, Devin's silence, Vivian's poison. Those memories no longer dictated my days. They were facts, not shackles. My phone buzzed on the side table. A text from an unknown number. I knew who it was before I opened it. Thank you for today, Mom. It was more than we deserve. We love you. I smiled despite myself, set the phone face down, and did not reply. Not yet. I would answer on my terms, in my own time. That was the difference now. I set the pace. I protected my peace. I turned off the lamp and walked to the back door. The yard glowed faintly under the moon. The flowers I'd planted swayed lightly in the night breeze. Every bloom felt like a small monument to the woman I was becoming. Every wall I had painted with my own hands felt like a promise I'd made to myself and kept. This house wasn't a museum of my pain anymore. It was a sanctuary I had built. Carefully, stubbornly, joyfully. I, Eleanor Thorne, 64 years old, was finally living, not for anyone's approval, not to earn anyone's love, but because my life belonged to me. The fear that used to wake me in the middle of the night had gone quiet. In its place was a steady clarity. I could be kind without being used. I could love without losing myself. I could open the door a crack without letting the past flood the room. Over the next weeks, I kept to my gentle routines. Morning coffee on the patio, Luna chasing sunbeams across the rug, Thursday dance class with Ruth and the girls,
Gen came by with a bag of fresh tomatoes from a farmer's market and stayed to help me make a simple pasta. We ate at the little table by the window and laughed about nothing at all. There was no urgency in any of it, just days that felt honest and whole. Another envelope arrived from Devin. Crisp bills, a short note. Thinking of you. Hope the garden's blooming. He didn't ask for anything in return. He just kept showing up, the only way I'd allowed. Consistently, quietly, with no expectations. One Sunday afternoon, I pulled an old photo album down from the closet shelf. The pages crackled when I turned them. There was Devin with a crooked bowl cut, front teeth missing, frosting on his cheeks from a lopsided birthday cake I'd baked after a double shift. There was me, younger and exhausted and proud, holding him against my chest like he was everything, because he was. I traced our faces with my fingertip and let both truths exist at once. I had given him everything I knew how to give, and he had hurt me deeply. Both could be true. Both could remain true, even as something new slowly took shape. That evening, Mrs. Jenkins waved at me from her porch. "You look lighter, Eleanor," she called. Like a cloud finally moved. Maybe it did, I said, and meant it. I spent that night in the garden, Luna patrolling the fence line like a tiny guard, the warm air smelling faintly of lavender and cut grass. I thought about all the doors I had closed this year, and all the ones I had opened. Not to people who took and took, but to small, ordinary joys. A hand to hold on a walk, music in my living room, a kitten's motor-loud purr vibrating against my ribs, my own laughter. Unforced and unexpected. When the porch light flickered, I went inside, turned the deadbolt, and stood for a moment in the soft glow of my living room. The paint still looked fresh. The plants reached toward the window. The furniture, old, solid, and mine, held its shape. This was the life I'd built after the storm. Not perfect, not polished, but real. The past had finally lost its grip, and the future, quiet, wide, and honest, waited just beyond my front gate. Summer pressed in gently, long evenings, warm air humming with crickets, the garden thick with color. My days had a soft cadence I'd never known in all my years of rushing and worrying. The envelopes kept arriving like the turn of the calendar. Crisp bills, a few small words, never a demand. I still didn't spend the money. It wasn't about the cash. It was about consistency, about seeing with my own eyes that effort could be steady without me prodding it along. Ruth and I kept dancing on Thursdays, our circle growing looser and happier with each misstep and burst of laughter. Ken and I settled into a comfortable rhythm, walks, dinners that didn't need to impress, conversations that never once made me feel small. There was no rush to define anything. The company itself felt like a gift I hadn't known how to ask for years ago. Sometimes I'd spot Devin across the way, carrying a neighbor's groceries, fixing a squeaky gate, pausing to scratch a stray dog under its chin. He didn't always see me. When he did, he offered a small wave, careful, almost deferential. I'd nod. It was enough. The space between us wasn't empty anymore. It was being filled, a grain at a time, with unremarkable, necessary acts. I pulled out the photo albums on a lazy Sunday and let myself leaf through a life. There was the little boy in the hand-me-down jacket, cheeks flushed with cold, grinning up at me like I hung the moon. There was the woman I used to be, tired, determined, stretching every dollar and mile. I touched our faces and felt the truth land in a way it hadn't before. Love and harm can live in the same story. Forgiveness and boundaries can stand shoulder to shoulder. I didn't have to erase one thing to make room for another. One evening, after watering the beds, I sat on the back steps with Luna curled on my feet like a living slipper. The sky faded from coral to indigo. The house glowed softly behind me, lap light on fresh paint, plants reaching, frames straight on the wall. It struck me then how fiercely I had fought for this piece, how many times I had almost opened the door and handed it away. My phone buzzed. Another envelope had arrived that morning. The text followed now. Thinking of you. Hope you're sleeping well tonight. D. I smiled, set the phone face down again, and closed my eyes. I didn't respond. Not yet. I wasn't hardening my heart. I was stewarding my healing. That difference saved me. I went inside and locked the door, not out of fear, but because the home behind it was precious, mine to protect, mine to fill with whoever had earned a place at my table, however slowly that earning might happen. Eleanor Thorne, 64 years old, was finally living, not as someone's cushion, not as someone's last resort, as myself, for myself, with peace I had built and joy I didn't have to apologize for. Did this story resonate with you? Tell me where you're watching from in the comments. I'd love to say hello to folks from different cities. If you enjoyed this, consider sending a super thanks to help me keep bringing you more real-life stories. Your support means the world, and I can't wait to read your thoughts below. On screen, you'll see 2 new life stories I highly recommend. There's plenty more on the channel. Don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next story. With love and respect.